I retired to a quiet Oregon farm expecting sunlit chores, coffee at first light, and a porch wide enough for silence, not a barked instruction from my son to vacate my own bedroom so his wife's 8 relatives could move in. I said nothing on the phone, but I measured rooms, printed rules, and wound a clock even he couldn't hear, because the difference between a demand and a plan is timing, and mine would strike the second tires touched gravel. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I bought the farmhouse in late February, a 2-story with white paint that peeled like paper shavings, and a roof the color of damp slate. 10 acres outside Carlton, Oregon, with a small hazelnut stand, 2 paddocks, a cedar barn, and soil dark as coffee grounds. By March, I had planted 20 bare root blueberries, 3 apple trees, and a strawberry patch I guarded with netting and hope. When the wind died at dusk, swallows took the sky like ink lines. I retired from hospital billing at 62, long enough to know how to read a ledger and a person's tone. My son Tyler is 34, rushed since birth, impatient with anyone who doesn't move on his schedule. His wife Alyssa never met a camera she didn't face. Her people form a chorus, loud, loyal to each other, allergic to the word no. On Wednesday, April 10th, at 7:42 p.m., he called. I was on the porch with a mug of chamomile, counting the frog croaks below the steps. "Take the guest room," he said. "I'm coming with Alyssa and 8 of her relatives. If you don't like it, go back to the city." I watched the pastor take the last of the light. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I said, "Safe drive," and hung up. Then I set the mug down and walked inside. Because silence is not surrender, sometimes it's a fuse. He texted a minute later to confirm Saturday, April 13th, late afternoon. I typed back a thumbs up and opened my closing binder on the kitchen island. My realtor had slid a copy of the septic permit into a sleeve I hadn't read. The designed flow allowed 6 overnight occupants for the 3-bedroom system. Any more risked a violation. That was not my opinion, it was the county's letterhead. But then, I called Yamhill County Planning first thing Thursday and asked them to email a fresh copy. A woman named Dara sent it at 9:11 a.m., adding one sentence. Enforcement can issue warnings and fines for over-occupancy, up to $250 per day, escalating. I thanked her, printed the PDF, and tucked it into a manila folder labeled Guests, Rules. Next I called a lawyer in McMinnville, whose card I'd kept for estate tidy-ups. Her name was Marianne Chu. I booked a same-day phone consult for 2 p.m. I told her exactly what he'd said, and that I anticipated 10 uninvited adults arguing squatters' rights while I slept in my own guest room. "Don't use the word squatters," she said. "You'll sound like Facebook. Use clear, accurate words. They are uninvited. If they enter without permission, they trespass. If you once allowed entry and you revoke permission, you give a no trespass notice and request a civil standby." "What about locks?" I asked. "Change none they can claim you changed to trap them inside. Change locks to secure your private spaces only. And paper everything. Send a written no consent to occupy letter tonight. Send it by text and email and mail a certified copy. Then file a trespass letter of consent with the sheriff." "What's a surprise that's legal?" I asked. "Having paying guests in the rooms they expected to take," she said. "Not unkind. Contracts beat tantrums. Except, I hadn't planned to host anyone so soon." The house had 2 spare rooms, one with a queen bed and a quilt I found at a church sale, the other held a twin bed and boxes. But the barn had 2 brand new canvas wall tents I bought for farm stay weekends, each with cots, wool blankets, and battery lanterns. I had set them on platforms, behind the shelter belt by the creek, out of sight of the road. If anyone stayed without a written agreement, it would be out there, not inside my kitchen. I posted a 2-night listing with a farm stay agency that Thursday morning. Blueberry House, quiet owner-occupied farm stay. The agent, a practical woman named Tara, called at noon. "I've got a pair of birders desperate for lodging," she said. "They're chasing a rare vireo sighting. They'll pay $265 per night and arrive Friday at 6. That okay?" That's perfect, I said, because the word rare is a better shield than why. Tara sent a simple agreement by DocuSign. I signed, paid the $180 clean fee, and printed the booking confirmation. It felt like stacking sandbags before a storm. That evening, I wrote a short letter to Tyler and Alyssa with a lawyer's sentence structure and a mother's edges rounded off. This confirms that you do not have permission to occupy my farmhouse on April 13th or any date thereafter without a written, signed license from me. The home is owner-occupied and booked for paying guests April 12 to 14. The property's septic system is permitted for 6 overnight occupants. Any attempt to enter the house without a written agreement will be treated as trespass. If you want to visit in the future, request dates by email, and I will respond in writing. Love, Mom. I sent the text and email at 7:06 p.m., then drove to the Carlton post office and mailed a certified copy. On Friday morning, I filed a trespass letter of consent with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, adding Tyler and Alyssa's full names and cell numbers. The deputy at the front desk nodded like he'd watched that film before. Call for a civil standby Saturday, he said. We'll be ready until... The birders arrived Friday in a dusty Subaru with binoculars like small kettles. They were older and kind, the type who whisper even outside. I showed them the farmhouse, the rooms with fresh sheets, the note card on the fridge with the Wi-Fi password, and the basket of farm eggs I'd washed at noon. Please text me if anything isn't right, I said. I'll be in the owner's suite. My porch is the one with the rocking chair. I slept with the window cracked and the phone on the nightstand, a simple admission that rest takes work. Saturday glowed clean after a late rain, grass sharp and new. At 3:58 p.m., a caravan rolled over the cattle guard, 2 vans and a compact car with grocery bags pressed against the windows. I was already at the gate in boots and a denim shirt, my folder tucked under my arm, a deputy's cruiser idling by the mailbox. Deputy Ames leaned on his door with a patience that looked like granite. Tyler jumped down first, sunglasses on, jaw set. Alyssa stepped out with a tote and a tone that didn't fit a front yard. 4 men I didn't know climbed from the vans and stretched like they were claiming acreage. 4 women gathered in a knot, bright nails, louder perfume than wind. Open up, Tyler said. We're starving. The farmhouse is occupied, I said, by paying guests. He laughed without humor. They can move. The farmhouse is occupied, I repeated, and handed him the letter. He scanned and tossed it back, but Deputy Ames caught it with an easy hand and read the top line. She mailed a certified copy, the deputy said. There's a no trespass consent on file. If you force entry, I'll charge you. Are you serious? Alyssa said. It's her house. We're family. The deputy tipped his chin at the letter. It's also her house, and she's revoked consent. Family doesn't create automatic occupancy. That's TV law. One problem, Tyler never liked public lines. He walked to the porch like a man ignoring weather, tested the knob, and found it locked. Inside, the birders glanced up from their guidebook on the couch, their faces puzzled, then firm as they saw me and the deputy. Quiet people know when to hold still. I didn't raise my voice. There are 2 furnished wall tents behind the shelter belt, I said, and held up a second paper. If you want to stay on my land tonight, sign this license and I will allow you to use those tents until 10 a.m. tomorrow. No charge. You'll have access to the outside sink and the porta-wash station by the barn. No house entry. No exceptions. What's a license? One of the men asked. A temporary permission that can't be confused with a lease, I said. It starts today at 5. It ends tomorrow at 10. It doesn't create tenant rights. If you break the terms, it ends immediately. Or what? Alyssa said. Or you leave, the deputy said, still mild. Or I make you. They huddled by the vans. I could hear steel tumbling in their voices, pride and the ordinary disbelief that a mother might hold a boundary without flinching. The women glanced past me at the open door and the tidy room beyond. The men looked at the barn like it smelled of work. Except... Alyssa pulled out her phone and started a live video, narrating with the intensity of a weather reporter. My mother-in-law kicked us out of her house, she said to the camera. She told us we had to sleep in tents like dogs. Shut it off, Tyler muttered, but he didn't mean it. They needed to be right for someone. The deputy didn't care about their audience. He pointed at a freshly posted sign under the porch light. Private home, registered guests only. Capacity 6 per septic permit. See owner for license to enter. Pick, he said. Tense with permission or you go. They signed with 3 grudging names. Tyler, a cousin named Marco, and a woman named Jessa, and drifted down toward the shelter belt in a line like slow cattle. The others piled back into a van and peeled away, gravel spitting. Alyssa filmed the whole walk, narrating misery. The deputy left when the lights softened and the frogs returned, his cruiser rolling away without a ripple. The air cooled and I brought the birders a plate of cookies. We didn't come for drama, the woman said softly. Me neither, I said. Thank you for bearing witness. But then, at 11:23 p.m., my phone chimed. The birders texted, someone is trying the back door. I stepped into the hallway and listened, a soft rattle at the mudroom handle, like a 5-year-old learning a lock. I walked to the kitchen and flipped on the light. The motion camera under the eaves showed a clear picture on my tablet. Alyssa, alone, trying the knob with a set of keys that weren't mine. I opened the door, stopping it against the chain. You're on camera, I said. Walk back to your tent now. Let me use the bathroom, she said, still filming. I'm pregnant. You can use the wash station or the guest porta, I said. The words felt cold and unfair in my mouth, but boundaries are indifferent. Walk away. She stared a long beat, then turned, muttering something about humiliation and payback. I watched her walk the pasture's edge, the beam from her phone light wobbling like a thin star. Morning came with a small mercy, a vireo that pleased my guests in a sky that meant work. The tent crew trailed to the wash station with complaints as steady as the creek, coffee steaming from the thermos I set on a table because I am not cruel. By 10 they were gone, dust chalking the road. I thought the story would fade there. It didn't. Monday brought a message from County Code Enforcement. We received an anonymous complaint about an illegal rental and over-occupancy, the officer wrote. We will inspect your property Wednesday at 9 a.m. I replied with the septic permit copy, the farm stay agreement, the occupancy count, the birders 2, me 1, total 3, and an invitation to inspect. Then I printed screen grabs from Alyssa's live video. She had spun a masterpiece. Elderly mom refuses shelter to pregnant daughter-in-law. The comments bloomed with outrage and advice. I scrolled until my hands shook, then stopped. The internet was not my porch. Mid-roll surge, Tuesday's mail held a credit card offer with my name and my farm address, and a pre-approval that seemed too warm for a stranger. But the return address on the reply envelope listed an apartment in Beaverton, Tyler's old address. I called the bank's fraud line and learned someone had already opened an account online using my address as residence verification. They had not charged anything yet. I closed the account within minutes, flagged my credit, and printed the confirmation emails. The ugliness had grown legs. Wednesday at 9, the code officer stepped out of a county SUV with a clipboard. He checked the home, the posted capacity sign, the clean kitchen, the 2 neat rooms, the owner's suite. He walked the shelter belt and saw the tent platforms, empty now, the canvas folded and stored. Everything appears in order, he said. We'll close the complaint. He looked at me with a small, tired kindness. Family? Sometimes, I said. He left, and I sat on the porch with my folder and my phone, 2 tools whose weight I could manage. Then I called Marianne again. Document everything, she said. Screenshot the video and comments. Save the code compliance email. Save your fraud alerts. Send a demand for retraction to Alyssa. If they do not retract, file a small claims case for economic loss and harassment. Keep the amount concrete. Lost bookings. The extra cleaning and security you bought. Time off you had to take for inspections. The judge can't fix family, but he can total a receipt. What number looks real? I asked. Real means provable, she said. What did this cost you? I sharpened a pencil and did math in the quiet. The farm stay agency had 3 more bookings on hold that canceled after Alyssa's video spun up. 2 wrote kind notes. We're older and want quiet. Lost revenue, $795. Extra security cameras I installed Monday, $248. A day's lost work for the inspection and the wild goose chase, I counted it at $200. My old daily rate at the hospital. Additional clean for the tents after the cousin flicked ash on a wool blanket, $95. Fraud alerts and overnight credit freezes, small fees totaling $42. Certified mailings and copies, $28. It came to $1,408 without padding a cent. I filed the small claims on Friday, April 19th. listing Tyler and Alyssa as defendants, and requested a civil anti-harassment order as a separate action, backed by texts, the video, and the late-night door jiggle. The clerk stamped my papers with a thunk that felt like dignity. The hearing dates came back the next week, May 28 for small claims, June 4 for the protection order. I wrote them on a notepad and watered the blueberries. They tried to scare me anyway. A man from Alyssa's family called twice with words meant to turn my spine to string. "You're ruining your relationship with your son," he said. "You'll die alone out there." "I'm not alone," I said, and set the receiver down as if I'd set down a rock in a basket I didn't want to carry. On May 28, I parked at the Yamhill County Courthouse in a pressed shirt and clean boots because I didn't believe in wearing someone else's costume. The courtroom was small, the air still. The judge had a voice like rain on a metal roof, calm, steady. I laid my folder on the table and set out my exhibits like a picnic. The booking contracts, the screenshots, the county email, the fraud confirmation, the receipts, and the video still with Alyssa's caption. "She says she was pregnant," the judge said after he skimmed the file. "Was she?" "I don't know," I said. "She never told me before. She used the word to unlock a door." He read the septic permit slowly, then tapped the corner with his pen. "6 people overnight," he said, "and 10 arrived." Tyler stared at his shoes. Alyssa stared through me. I didn't look away. When it was their turn, they talked about hurt feelings and family rights. The judge raised a hand, palm open. "This is not Dr. Phil," he said. "This is a ledger. The question is whether she lost money or suffered harassment and can prove it." I handed him a photo of the tent blanket with the ash burn, a close-up of the scorch. "That smelled like a campfire in the wrong place," I said. "I bought those with cash." He nodded. Then he read his decision into the record with care for the plaintiff, in the amount of $1,408 for economic loss, plus $55 in costs. Defendants shall delete the defamatory video within 48 hours and shall not repost. Failure to comply may result in contempt. Alyssa made a noise like a laugh and a cough. Tyler's jaw set again, but he signed the judgment printout with a scraggly line. I walked to the clerk's counter to copy it and felt my shoulders lower an inch. The protection order hearing the next week was shorter. I played the midnight clip of the doorknob turning. The judge asked one question. "Do you feel unsafe if they appear without notice?" "Yes," I said. "I live alone." They came with 10. He granted a 1-year anti-harassment order, no contact, no entry, with an exception for court-ordered exchanges if they ever decided to pay in person. They didn't. The first payment arrived by money order 3 weeks later, $200, postmarked Beaverton. A second came in August, the same amount, signed by Alyssa in a careful hand. By Thanksgiving, the judgment was satisfied. The video disappeared within the 48 hours. Someone sent me a shrug emoji from a number I didn't save. But then, I found myself scanning the road whenever a van rattled the cattle guard. I was tired in a way that sleep didn't touch, the kind of tired that lives under your ribs. In November, I installed a gray steel gate at the start of the driveway and a keypad that clicked when it liked you. I gave the code to Tara for the farm stay guests and to the birders, who returned with a thermos and a Vireo story. I changed nothing else. The porch stayed the same. The frogs kept their chorus. Winter came with rain and a different kind of work. I pulled blackberry brambles and set cedar posts. I took a pruning class at the extension office and wrote a check for 6 more bare root apples, because planting is a promise. I let anger exit my body the way water leaves on a slow evaporation. Silent, steady, honest. When a text came from Tyler in January, "Can we talk?" I sat with it for a day, then answered. "Yes," I wrote, by phone with a counselor on the line. No visits without permission, no surprises. He didn't reply fast. When he did, it was a simple, "Okay." I saved the text. In March, the blueberries woke. In April, I stood by the creek and watched a pair of ducks argue the same 3 feet of water as if it were waterfront real estate. I laughed out loud, the sound of someone who finally recognized a joke the world had told twice. The farm didn't forgive me and didn't need to. It only asked for attention, for clean hands and steady decisions. A week later, I pulled the tents out of storage and brushed the dust from the canvas. I wrote a small sign for the path beyond the barn, volunteers and guests, check in on the porch. Then I sat in the rocking chair with coffee and the morning's little ledger of chores. A pickup rolled past the gate and paused. the driver reading the new sign. He waved and drove on. Alyssa never posted about me again. People forget quickly when the story lacks a new flame. Tyler and I spoke twice more on the phone, careful as people carrying a pane of glass. He asked about the farm. I told him which trees had taken. I told him the birders brought a drawing of the vireo. He said, like a man who didn't know how to hold a small thing without breaking it. That was enough for then. In June, I hosted a quilting retreat that filled the house with soft laughter, and women who knew how to repair what phrase. They left a gift on the table, a quilted runner stitched with tiny blueberries. I laid it down like a boundary that happened to be beautiful. When the sun angles just right at dusk, my porch boards glow the color of honey. That's when I think about the night Alyssa rattled my doorknob, and the deputy's cruiser glowed blue on the gravel. A boundary can feel cruel in the moment and still be right. I did not buy this farm to become a doormat. I bought it to rest, and I learned rest requires fences, signs, and the will to stand on your own porch without raising your voice. The surprise I left that day, the posted rules, the signed license, the tent set neatly where a house wasn't, was never meant to punish. It was a map. It turned a demand into a choice and a threat into a line no one could misunderstand. And when I rock on this chair with the frogs loud and the swallows cutting the evening into ribbons, I think about clocks and plans, and how the right ones tick so softly you only hear them when the gravel quiets.